Hey, wrestling fans. Welcome to another episode of 360 Wrestling Fanatic for December 17th, 2020. And I am your host, Lance Brock, episode 227. Thank you for tuning in wherever you are, whether you're listening to the audio podcast or watching the stream on YouTube right now. Thank you. I appreciate you tuning in, and I haven't been doing as many episodes as I would like to lately, but I will when I am able to. But right now, back on for another episode, and I'm just going to get right into it. Going to talk about this past weekend. Impact Wrestling had their final Impact Plus special of the year, Final Resolution, and just going to recap that real quick. And first off, we have an old school rules match, and it is Tommy Dreamer defeating Larry D. And AC Romero gets involved, and then we see Johnny Bravo come out to help Tommy Dreamer. If you've been watching Impact Wrestling, obviously you know the storyline with the wedding between Johnny Bravo and Rosemary, and then which ended in Johnny Bravo getting shot, and it was the alter ego Lawrence Johnny Bravo because he was jealous because he was marrying Rosemary. If you saw Wrestler's House, excuse me. So Tommy Dreamer gets the win. And with Knockouts tag team action is up next. The Sea Stars take on Havoc and Nevaeh. And it is Havoc pinning Ashley Vox to get the win for her team. More tag team action up next, this time mixed tag team action. Tennille Dashwood and Caleb with a K take on Eddie and Alicia Edwards. And we get a distraction from Sami Callihan here on the screen, and Dashwood is able to pin Alicia. And after the match, Callihan attacks Eddie Edwards and then goes after Alicia, and referees and security make their way down to the ring. The next match, Tasha Steelz is the guest ring announcer, and Kiera Hogan is the guest referee. Hernandez versus Fala Ba. Hernandez picks up the win, and he goes to get the money after it, but the money is gone, which Tasha Steelz had. And then we have Eric Young and Rhino. Referee gets knocked down. Young goes to use his mask, but then the Deaners come down. Cody grabs the mask and he says, "I am not a nobody." And then he turns on Cousin Jake, hitting him with the mask. And then Young hits Rhino with it for the win. Next up, we had the Defeat Rohit Challenge, where in this one, anybody except for TJP can accept it. And who accepts it this time? It is none other than Manic, who is also defeats Rohit Raju to become the new Impact Wrestling X Division champion. And next up on Final Resolution, Rosemary challenging for the Impact Wrestling Knockouts Championship against the champion Deonna Purrazzo. Purrazzo retains in this one in a very good match. That is one thing that has really impressed me with Impact Wrestling as of late is the women's knockouts division. Ethan Page taking on Carl Anderson. Carl Anderson picks up the win. Time for the main event of Final Resolution now. It is for the Impact Wrestling World Championship. Chris Bay taking on Rich Swann. And it is Rich Swann retaining at 20 minutes 9 seconds. And then we see Moose make his way to the ring holding the TNA World title. And they have a bit of a stare down, which kind of looks like we could see a match between those two. And by the looks of it, what happened Tuesday on Impact Wrestling does not look like it's going to be hard to kill, though. As Impact Wrestling, it was announced that at Hard to Kill, the AEW World Champion Kenny Omega and the Good Brothers, Doc Gallows and Carl Anderson, will be taking on the team of Impact Wrestling World Champion Rich Swann and the Motor City Machine Guns, Chris Sabin and Alex Shelley. And that should be a very interesting match. So far, I'm liking the working relationship with Impact and AEW. Let me know what you think of it in the comments or in the chat, whichever. And now let's move on to another show that I want to talk about real quick. The New Japan Pro Wrestling Super J Cup, which took place here in the U.S., California. The commentators for this show, Kevin Kelly and Alex Kozlov. And in the first round, we have Chris Bay representing Impact Wrestling, taking on Clark Connors. And it is Chris Bay advancing in this one. And I have been a big fan of Chris Bay for a while now. Not only his run in Impact, but he had a pretty impressive run in Championship Wrestling from Hollywood as well. Next up, we have TJP, also from Impact Wrestling, taking on ACH. And it is ACH advancing in this one. Next up, we have Blake Christian representing Game Changer Wrestling, taking on Ray Horace representing Ring of Honor. And Blake Christian advances. And next up, we have Leo Rush versus El Phantasmo. El Phantasmo wins to advance. And in a non-tournament tag team match, Danny Limelight and JR Kratos defeat Fred Rosser and Rocky Romero when Limelight pins Romero. And now it's time for the semifinals. Chris Bay defeats ACH. Chris Bay versus ACH, but is ACH picking up the win to advance. And El Phantasmo defeats Blake Christian to advance. And another tag team match, non-tournament match, Kenta and Hikaru defeat Kevin Knight and Ren Narita when Kenta pins Knight. And the finals of the Super J Cup tournament, it is ACH taking on El Phantasmo. And we see El Phantasmo defeat ACH to become the Super J Cup winner. pretty good match for the finals. Good show overall. I definitely recommend you checking it out if you have not seen it. The replay is available on Fight TV, the Fight app, or New Japan World. So I definitely recommend checking it out on one of those platforms if you can. And now let's get into last night's AEW Dynamite. 6-man tag team action. Hangman Page teaming with the Dark Order, John Silver and Alex Reynolds, as they take on Matt Hardy and Private Party. Matt Hardy pins Alex Reynolds to score the win for his team. Next up, Cody Rhodes defeats Angelico. Pretty good match. And then we see Taz with Team Taz, Brian Cage, Ricky Starks, and Powerhouse Hobbs. And then we see Sting come out. And then Eddie Kingston cuts a promo. And then that leads to a brawl, of course. Lance Archer and the Butcher, the Blade. And then we see the Pac and Lucha Brothers, the Death Triangle. And then next up, we have a 12-man tag team match as the Inner Circle takes on Best Friends, the Varsity Blondes, and Top Flight. MJF scores the win for the Inner Circle when he pins Griff Garrison, stealing the win. SCU versus the Acclaimed, and the Acclaimed picks up the win against the veteran tag team here, SCU. Ivelisse and Diamante taking on Big Swole and NWA Women's Champion Serena Deeb. Swole makes Ivelisse submit. And after the match, Nyla Rose and Vicky Guerrero make their way to the ring to attack Serena Deeb. Red Velvet makes the save. The main event is up next. The bad boy, Joey Janela, with Sonny Kiss, taking on the AEW World Champion with Impact Wrestling Executive Vice President Don Callis. Omega picks up the win with the one-winged angel, and we see the Death Triangle, and we find out December 30th on Dynamite on New Year's Smash. We will see Kenny Omega defend the AEW World Championship against Rey Fenix, which should be a very entertaining match. Definitely looking forward to that. And just a reminder, next week, Dynamite will be on late. Should be starting sometime around 10 o'clock, 10 p.m. Eastern, or whenever the NBA game is over. So, who knows for sure when Dynamite will be airing. Hopefully, it won't be too long though. Whenever the game ends on, that is next week, Dynamite. And this Friday, Ring of Honor presents Final Battle on pay-per-view. And this Sunday, WWE TLC. I hope to do shows about both of those pay-per-views coming up. So we will have to wait and see. And now to get into a little bit of news, Carl Anderson is teasing a Dynamite appearance of himself and Don Gallows. I wouldn't be surprised to see this with that angle going on. And I don't think I've talked about it here on the podcast yet. I don't think I've done one, though, since this news broke, but EC3 has been pulled from Final Battle actually due to a positive test of COVID this Friday, the pay per view. And now it looks like Chris Jericho is finished with New Japan Pro Wrestling. And John Moxley also has appearances on his contract still. Of course, he is still the IWGP United States champion. And there's been some talk about WWE building a physical Hall of Fame in Florida. Honestly, I think that would be a pretty good idea, in my opinion, anyway. I don't know if I would ever be able to make it there, but I definitely would like to. I think that would be a fun thing for a vacation. But that's all for this episode of 360 Wrestling Fanatic. But stay tuned if you're watching on the live YouTube stream, because next up, I'm going to record a quick episode of 360 Fanatic Unleashed. So stay tuned. Right here, right now, it's gonna end this episode, and then gonna go live again. Gonna also record it for Anchor and all the other podcatchers. But until then, remember 360 Wrestling Podcast at gmail.com if you have any questions or comments. Facebook and Instagram. Until then, remember, donate to the Salvation Army. Only 3 days for me anyway, I should say, for ringing the bell. But you only have to Christmas Eve. If you only have some spare change, even every little bit helps. And wear your mask, use your hand sanitizer, stay safe. Until then, I am Lance, and I am a wrestling fanatic.